Imagine two men. One wakes up at 5 a.m. He ties his boots. He lifts heavy boxes. He climbs stairs all day at a construction site. He sweats for 10 hours straight. He comes home exhausted, too tired to talk, too tired to move, too tired to exercise. The second man wakes up at 7 a.m. He sits in an office chair for 8 hours, drinks coffee, types on a keyboard, barely moves. But at 6 p.m., he changes clothes, goes for a 40-minute jog, then sleeps peacefully. Now here's the strange part. Science suggests the office worker who exercises may live longer than the construction worker who works physically all day. How is that possible? Isn't physical activity always good? For decades, we were told, move more, sit less. Exercise is medicine. And that's true. But it's not the whole truth, because something surprising has emerged in modern research. It's called the physical activity paradox. What we thought we knew about exercise. For years, global health organizations, including the World Health Organization, have promoted physical activity as one of the most powerful tools for preventing disease. And they're right. Regular physical activity reduces heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, obesity, depression, certain cancers. Research consistently shows that moderate leisure time exercise improves life expectancy. Studies from institutions like the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health demonstrate that 150 minutes of moderate activity per week lowers cardiovascular mortality significantly. Even walking 30 minutes daily makes a difference. So where does the paradox come in? Here's the key. Not all physical activity is the same, and not all movement stresses the body in the same way. The discovery of the paradox. In 2018, a large study published in the European Heart Journal analyzed over 100,000 individuals. It found something shocking. Leisure time physical activity reduced the risk of heart disease. But high levels of occupational physical activity, physical work done as part of a job, did not reduce risk. In fact, in some cases, it increased cardiovascular mortality. This phenomenon became known as the physical activity paradox. It suggests that physical activity performed at work may not provide the same protective health benefits as exercise done during free time. Why would that happen? To understand this, we must understand something deeper. The human body doesn't just respond to movement. It responds to how that movement is structured. Let's break it down. The difference between work and exercise. Leisure exercise are planned, time-limited. Moderate intensity includes rest, often improves fitness over time. Occupational activity are long duration, repetitive, often high strain, little recovery, often combined with stress. One builds the body. The other may slowly wear it down. The story of a warehouse worker. Consider John. He works in a warehouse. Lifts packages all day, walks 15,000 steps daily. You would assume he's fit. But John's movements are repetitive. He lifts awkwardly. He barely rests. His heart rate stays elevated for hours. He experiences job stress. Over time, his blood pressure rises. His back hurts. He sleeps poorly. He is physically active, but not in a way that promotes recovery or cardiovascular conditioning. What science says about heart stress. Research shows that prolonged low-intensity physical work without rest may cause sustained elevation of heart rate, increased blood pressure, chronic inflammation, higher cortisol levels. Unlike interval exercise, which alternates stress and recovery, manual labor often keeps the body in prolonged strain mode. The heart prefers rhythmic, structured stress with recovery, not endless load. The cardiovascular explanation. When you exercise intentionally, your heart rate rises, your vessels dilate, your cardiac output improves. Your parasympathetic system recovers you afterward. But during prolonged physical labor, heart rate may stay moderately elevated for 8-10 hours. Blood pressure may spike during lifting. Recovery is minimal. Hydration may be poor. Psychological stress compounds physical stress. This may explain why occupational physical activity doesn't always reduce heart disease. Socio-economic factors. Here's another layer. People with high occupational physical activity often have lower income, have less access to healthcare, have higher smoking rates, have poorer sleep, experience higher job stress. So the paradox may not be purely biological, it may also be social. Health is not just movement, it is environment, recovery, nutrition, stress, and autonomy. What other research confirms? A meta-analysis in the British Journal of Sports Medicine found high occupational physical activity was associated with increased mortality in men, but leisure time physical activity consistently reduced mortality. Why? Because leisure exercise improves cardiorespiratory fitness. Occupational activity often does not. Cardiorespiratory fitness, measured by VO2 max, it is one of the strongest predictors of longevity. And structured training improves VO2 max. Repetitive labor often does not. The stress hormone effect. Let's talk about cortisol. Cortisol rises during physical and psychological stress. Short bursts are healthy. Chronic elevation are dangerous. Long work shifts with physical strain may increase systemic inflammation, increase arterial stiffness, impair metabolic recovery. Exercise, when structured, reduces resting cortisol over time. Work stress may elevate it chronically. Muscle versus cardio benefits are. Another misconception is that hard physical work builds fitness. But not necessarily. Lifting irregular loads does not equal strength training. Standing all day does not equal aerobic conditioning. Exercise training follows principles: progressive overload, rest, specificity, adaptation. Manual labor rarely follows these principles. So does this mean physical jobs are bad? No, movement is still better than complete inactivity. But the paradox teaches us physical activity must be balanced with recovery and cardiovascular conditioning. Workers in physical jobs may still benefit from short aerobic sessions, stretching, strength training, adequate sleep, blood pressure monitoring. Even 20-30 minutes of structured exercise can make a difference. Transition is that. So now we understand exercise is medicine, but only when prescribed correctly. Movement without recovery can become strain. Activity without adaptation can become stress. Inside the body, what really happens during different types of activity? Let's zoom inside the body. Imagine your heart during a 30-minute jog. Your pulse rises, blood vessels widen, oxygen delivery improves. Your lungs expand deeply. Afterward, your heart rate slows. Your nervous system shifts into recovery mode. Over weeks, this pattern repeats. Stress leads to recovery, leads to adaptation, and then stronger heart. Now imagine a construction worker carrying bricks for 9 hours. Heart rate mildly elevated. Lifting loads repeatedly. No structured recovery. Often under time pressure. Sometimes dehydrated. Often stressed. The heart is working, but not in a way that builds capacity. It is enduring load, not training for performance. And there is a difference. The cardiorespiratory fitness factor, one of the strongest predictors of long life, is something called cardiorespiratory fitness. It is often measured as VO2 max, how much oxygen your body can use during intense exercise. Higher VO2 max has lower risk of death from heart disease. Leisure time exercise increases VO2 max. But prolonged occupational activity often does not significantly increase it. Why? Because fitness improves when intensity challenges the system briefly and then allows recovery. Manual labor tends to be low to moderate intensity, prolonged, repetitive, without structured overload progression. So the heart never truly trains. It simply works. Blood pressure, the silent difference. During structured aerobic exercise, blood pressure rises temporarily. After exercise, resting blood pressure decreases over time. But during heavy lifting at work, blood pressure can spike sharply, especially during isometric strain, hold heavy act. Repeated spikes throughout the day may increase arterial stiffness. Over years, this contributes to hypertension, left ventricular hypertrophy, Increased cardiovascular risk. This helps explain findings from large European cohort studies where high occupational activity did not reduce heart mortality. The inflammation connection. Inflammation is the body's repair signal. Short-term inflammation from exercise is good. It triggers adaptation. But chronic low-grade inflammation is harmful. Occupational strain without recovery may lead to elevated CRPC reactive protein, increased inflammatory cytokines, persistent muscle microtrauma, joint wear and tear. Leisure exercise alternates damage with repair. Work strain may not allow full repair. That imbalance matters. The role of autonomy. Here's something subtle but powerful. Leisure exercise is chosen. Occupational activity is required. Psychology changes physiology. When you choose to run, you feel control. You feel achievement. Dopamine rises. When you must lift, under supervision, under pressure, under deadlines. Stress hormones rise differently. Autonomy reduces stress response. Lack of control amplifies it. This is not just philosophy. Research in occupational health psychology shows that low job control increases cardiovascular risk, even independent of physical strain. Men versus women have different effects. Some studies show the paradox appears stronger in men. Why? Possibly because men are more represented in heavy manual labor. The physical loads are higher. Cardiovascular risk patterns differ biologically. But women with high occupational activity also show increased musculoskeletal disorders. The paradox affects both, though in slightly different ways. What about developing countries? Now let's widen the lens. In countries where manual labor dominates employment are farmers, factory workers, drivers, construction workers. Many believe that we don't need exercise. We work all day. But cardiovascular disease is still rising. Because physical activity alone is not enough. You need recovery, balanced nutrition, cardiovascular conditioning, stress management, healthcare access. This is a public health lesson that many systems have not yet fully addressed. Story of a bus driver. Meet Edward. He drives 10 hours daily. Low movement, high stress, poor sleep. But on weekends, he plays football with friends. His friend Joseph works in construction. Heavy lifting daily. Too tired to exercise on weekends. Years later, Edward's cardiovascular fitness improves from football. But his friend Joseph develops hypertension despite being active. The paradox is not about movement alone. It is about type, structure, and recovery. What this does not mean. Important clarification. The paradox does not mean physical jobs are harmful by default. You should avoid movement at work. Exercise is useless. Sedentary lifestyle is better. Sedentary behavior is still dangerous. Long sitting increases mortality risk. But occupational physical activity is not equal to fitness training. That is the key distinction. The golden formula for health. Research across populations consistently supports 150 to 300 minutes per week of moderate aerobic exercise, plus muscle strengthening activity 2 times per week, plus adequate sleep, plus stress reduction. This combination reduces cardiovascular risk significantly. Guidelines from the American Heart Association and the World Health Organization emphasize structured, moderate to vigorous leisure activity. Not simply being busy. Can workers protect themselves? Yes, if you have a physically demanding job. Monitor blood pressure regularly. Improve sleep quality. Add short aerobic sessions 20 to 30 min brisk walking. Stretch to reduce musculoskeletal strain. Focus on hydration. Improve nutrition. Seek periodic health screening. Even small structured exercise improves VO2 max, which reduces risk. Technology and the future. Wearable devices now measure heart rate variability, resting heart rate, activity patterns, sleep quality. Future research may distinguish healthy stress from harmful strain more precisely. Personalized exercise prescriptions may become standard. We are moving from move more to move smarter. Why this matters for policy. Public health campaigns often say, just move. But nuance matters. Manual laborers may need workplace rest cycles, rotational tasks, ergonomic improvements, stress reduction programs. Policy must adapt to science. The bigger message. The physical activity paradox teaches a deeper lesson. Health is not about exhaustion. It is about adaptation. You do not become stronger by being constantly strained. You become stronger by stressing the body and allowing it to recover. That principle applies to muscles, the heart, the brain, even society, the construction worker, the office worker, the warehouse employee, the bus driver. The message is not to stop moving. The message is to understand movement. Not all activity is equal. Not all sweat builds health. Not all exhaustion equals fitness. Exercise is powerful medicine. But like all medicine